Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's great to see you again. Today, we will begin session two by first talking about some principles of effective instructions and modeling when teaching listening and speaking activities. So, when I think about what makes effective instructions for a classroom activity, I think of four principles. Number one, effective instructions help students understand the procedures. And to best do that, I think that the best kinds of instructions are simple, affirmative, and imperative. So they should be positive actions. So rather than telling someone what not to do, telling the students what they should do, and imperative, give them in the form of a command, not in the form of a suggestion or a future statement. For example, okay, now we are going to take out our textbooks and open them up to page 40. Instead, try this. Please open your textbooks to page 40. Simple, affirmative, imperative. Number two, effective instructions help set up the interaction patterns for the activity. We have many different choices for interaction patterns. We can work individually, we can work in pairs, in groups, or we can work as a whole class. Some activities will combine interaction patterns as a process. For example, think, pair, share. We've done this in class before where students can think by themselves for a minute, individual. Then they can pair up to share their ideas together, pair, and then finally, some students can share their ideas with the whole class, share. Or sometimes there's a group presentation activity, in which case students could start to work individually or in pairs, then switch to groups where they prepare some kind of presentation to give, and then finally present their results to the whole class. Number three, effective instructions should take a minimal amount of time. They should be short. So when I consider how I'm going to instruct a given activity, I try to think in terms of do, teach, do. Others call it instruct, do, instruct. And what that really means is when you consider the context of an activity, what is the minimum amount of instruction that you need to get students to do a action? In other words, can you take an activity and break it down into smaller segments of student interaction so that you only have to give perhaps two or three instructions at a time, rather than, say, providing six or seven instructions up front and then having students ask questions like, oh, what do I do next? Oh, I'm so confused. Oh, what comes next? So, for example, when we did our podcast interviews, I first asked you to simply write down three hobbies that you have. That was one instruction. Then I had you pair up and choose a podcast name. Then I had you prepare two achievements for your guest. In this method, you only need to give one or two instructions, but do the entire activity as a series of small tasks rather than as one giant block of instructions. And finally, effective instructions allow the teacher to check for students' understanding. This often comes in the form of ICQs, or instruction comprehension questions. These can be very simple questions like yes or no, this or that, or questions that demand simple responses, something to check that the students understand what they are supposed to do. For example, okay, can you show your paper to your partner? No! Can you talk to your friends during this time? Or do you work alone? Work alone! Okay, how many sentences do you write? Three sentences. Okay, who is A? A, raise your hand. These are all examples of very simple ICQs. One ICQ that would be wise for you to avoid is this one. Do you understand? Because every time I ask this question, the student's answer, 99% of the time, is yes, of course I understand. But in reality, they might be confused or they might have many questions. So I try to ask more specific questions in order to get the students to share their understanding of the instructions. One of the ideal ways to supplement instructions when it comes to preparing for an activity is the use of modeling, giving students examples on the board, writing the instructions so students can read, providing an example through a PPT, or even asking students to help you with a live demonstration. I find that it's very effective to help students get into the groove of an activity whenever I give them an example on which they can focus on their process. So by showing them an example of the product that I want from them, they are able to then concoct their own responses. Let's look at a brief example of a very effective use of instructions by an ESL teacher that I found on YouTube, and try to take note of her clear affirmative instructions, her use of ICQs, and how she sets up the interaction patterns.
Okay, you need to be in pairs. So Kazu and Michele, if you're a pair. Maria and Jen, if you're a pair. And Ranko and Yohi. Okay, A, B, A, B, A, B. Okay, it's supper time. And you and your partner, you're at home and you're very, very hungry. Okay? A's, can you put up your hand if you're an A? Good. You can see what's in the fridge. Okay? Keep your paper very, very secret. Don't show your partner. Can you see what's in the fridge? What can you see that's in the fridge? Okay, good. And B's, you can see what's in the cupboard. Okay, again, keep it very secret. Don't show your partner. Okay, to the left of your paper, there are some possible recipes. Maria, what recipes can you see? What possible meal?
I have spaghetti with tomato and meat sauce and 2 fried eggs and chip.
Good. Speaking with your partner, you have to decide on what you're going to eat for supper. Okay? Can you show your piece of paper to your partner?
Yeah.
No? Keep it very secret. How will you know what's in the fridge or in the cupboard? What can you do? You have to speak to your partner. Off you go.
So, just like IKEA will often send very clear and effective papers on how to build pieces of furniture, so can you create very clear and effective instructions to help your students get into an activity by giving clear instructions, by taking minimal time, and by trying to instruct, do, and instruct. You can spend less time answering students' questions or confusions and more time doing what you really want to do in class, which is helping the students take command of their own learning. Thank you for listening today, and I look forward to seeing you in class next time. Until then, cheers!